Yeah.
Uh, Hello guys, welcome to this month's Hangout on Air office hours for Hindi and English languages. Can you hear us, SD and Arvind? Can you hear us?
Arvind, I don't think we are able to hear you. Let
Yeah.
me see if it's mute.
Can you type something in the chat or something? If you can hear us. Okay.
I think.
Okay. Yeah, he says we can. We can.
Okay, that's great, Arvind.
Uh,
Yeah.
all right.
Great.
Then let's just. If you have live questions, you can interrupt us anytime. Until then, we'll just go with the questions that have already been asked. Okay, we have like a lot of questions, mostly from Ramesh Singh, but we'll just take them one by one. Okay. The first question is for local language sites. I hardly see any site who optimizes its website in local language. For instance, Hindi language sites. If it's not good practice to put English in title, then why Google ranks these sites?
Okay, so basically, I think the question is around you're hardly seeing any sites optimizing its website in local languages. I'm not sure if that is the case because there are a lot of languages and a lot of local languages across the globe. If you're specifically talking about Hindi websites, of course, if you're comparing the English bunch of websites with the bunch of websites we have in Hindi, of course, they are far less. We don't have that much content in Hindi. And as far as I know, we have interacted with a lot of webmasters who are creating content, maintaining websites in Hindi, and they do take care about their websites in the sense, and they optimize their website so search engines can basically crawl and index them and understand them as well. So they do that optimization. A lot of them do. Maybe there are a lot of websites like blogs, for example, maintained by non-technical savvy people who are not so much into optimizing their websites, but we are trying to educate them out about what they can do to help us crawl and index their websites. And I think the second part of your question is, if it is not good practice to put English in title, then why Google rank these sites? Okay, so yes, I mean, there is a misconception among some of the Indic webmasters that you need to put English keywords into your Hindi pages for it to be able to rank. Now, the thing is, when we are talking about Hindi search, a lot of people are using transliteration, meaning they're using English alphabet to write Hindi words to search in Google search. And some of these users are expecting results in, again, what we call as Hinglish, or even Roman English, or basically using the English alphabet to write Hindi. So they are expecting results in that, or some users are expecting results in Hindi, right? Now, very frankly, it is very difficult to understand what the user's intent is. So we are also trying to improve our search in Hindi. It is definitely not at the stage where English search is, but I think going forward, you will definitely see a lot of improvement in the results as we see a lot of content also being generated, right? So at this point in time, I think it is definitely not the case that a Hindi webmaster is required to put in English keywords in their Hindi content to rank in the search results. That is absolutely not the case. Here and there, some instances, you may have seen those things. Sometimes we may not have appropriate results that are purely in Hindi that we could serve to the user. So in those cases, we may show this type of content where there's a mix of English and Hindi and things like this. But I think in the long term, and if you're really focusing on your Hindi users who read and write Hindi, then I think the best thing for you to do is create your content in Hindi and keep your users in mind. How would they feel if they, find English sentences or keywords in between your Hindi content, right? It wouldn't be a great user experience for them. So just keep that in mind and focus on them for now.
Hey, Ramesh.
Hi.
Okay, we'll take your next question. What Google prefers, JSON-LD or microdata? If we implement JSON-LD for rich snippets, will it appear on search results, or do we have to mark up with microdata? So we support both. Like whatever you feel that you've been using and it's working for you and doesn't break your site or anything, keep continue using that. Whatever you feel is the best for your website. But yeah, we support.
Okay, but yeah, the thing is like we have implemented a few of the instances like with the JSON and LD, and I mean that is something like we are not seeing anything with the search results if we are marking up with the JSON. But if you mark them with the microdata, the HTML kind of things, but they will start appearing on the search, but not with the JSON. So I mean, just why I'm asking is like, I mean, if you start marking things with the JSON LD and then it's still not reflecting on the search results, so then it might be like not working for us.
So have you seen used rich snippets tool to see if everything is implemented correctly?
Yeah, that is showing. Yeah, the data structure tool push showing is like absolutely okay.
Okay, so
So
if rich snippets tool is showing that everything is implemented correctly, then technically there's no issue with the rich snippets, right? So like at least on the technical side, it means that there is no issue with your snippets. Then apart from that, there are some policy guidelines for rich snippets, which basically mean you shouldn't have hidden, it shouldn't misrepresent. There's some set of policy guidelines you can check up in our help center. But even in case you meet these, like there's no guarantee that we'll always show rich snippets. We try our best, and whenever we see structured data, we obviously want to show the best result for our users, so that he can get good information in the search result itself. But like again, it's not always the case. In some cases, we decide that it's better not to show a rich snippet in some particular search result. But if you feel like it's there's some technical issue, it's not showing up in tools, again, like please document like all the things that you've seen properly in the forum, and someone will take up that particular instance. But in speaking generally, you have your rich snippets. If it's showing in the tool that it's implemented correctly, that means it is technically there's no issue.
okay.
Okay, we'll take the next question. So, guys, if you have any live questions, please.
Hey Dave, I have one question.
Sure.
So one thing like in the meta title and description, I am sure you must have covered it, so just pardon me for that. So in the meta title and description, is it advisable to use write in the Hindi language, or should we like type Hindi into English?
Okay, so I am assuming you have a Hindi website.
True that, yes.
Right. Now, when you have a Hindi website, it makes more sense to have your titles and descriptions in Hindi as well,
Okay.
right? Because at least the title is visible to your users in some browsers. And with the title and description as well, those may reflect in search results as well, right? So you would definitely not want somebody searching in Hindi, looking for Hindi content, to see content in English, and you never know. I mean, if that person is able to read English or not, right?
That's true, but the problem which I'm facing right now, so the Hindi reading audience, I mean, it's catered to a different level of demographic. Like, for example, if my mom age, she prefers to read something in complete Hindi. But there are people, let's say, who are in sixth or eighth standard in cities like Punjab or another cities. They still prefer to read something in English rather than Hindi. Like, so this is becoming a little problem, and any advice on this would be really appreciated.
One thing I would suggest is if you want to have alternate English pages, you can it's basically like you have one page with an article on say astrology, and then it's written in Hindi, and you have another page which is pretty much the same content but it's written in English. So you can just use this tag called href lang. So you can basically tell that your canonical page is the Hindi version. So like the default page is a Hindi version, but when people are searching in English for astrology, so they will be shown your English version. So
Okay.
what Google does is Google understands with the href tag that these two pages are one, and but this is the Hindi version and this is the English version. You can do that, but if that's too much effort, like I mean, obviously the content of your page, if you want it to be in Hindi, but in the title maybe you can separate Hindi and English titles using a pipe or something.
Okay, so let me reframe my question. What I'm saying, the thing is like there are users who prefer reading everything in complete Hindi, like we read in the Hindi newspaper. But there is a wide range of audience who prefer to read in English. Like there are certain words that you can't write in Hindi. So in such cases, what should be the approach? Is it good to go with the English, or should we just go stick with the Hindi?
So, if I understand your question correctly, Harsh, basically you're saying some people can read Hindi script,
Yeah.
and there are other bunch of people who are reading your comment, who want your content in Hindi, but it is written using English alphabet,
Exactly. Yes.
right?
So that's a big pain point, and any pointer on that would be good.
Right. So
True.
this is basically known as transliteration, or there is also an emerging term we are calling it Hinglish, Hinglish,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And yes, I think this is definitely a problem. It is kind of a problem for us as well because it is pretty difficult to understand what user can read and cannot read, and what type of content they are looking. I mean, what type of script they are looking, because what happens is a lot of time people are comfortable reading Hindi script, but they are not used to typing Hindi letters,
Exactly.
right? So what
True.
they end up doing when they come to Google search, for example, is they use English alphabet to write Hindi words, which is the transliteration,
Yep.
right? And then some of these people in the result set may expect Hindi, meaning results in written in Hindi script. Some may actually expect in transliteration again,
Yep.
right? So of course, I agree this is a very difficult situation for both content creators and search engines, and we are actually trying to understand this better, right? So we are trying to see, okay, what are those signals we can look at to understand what a particular user may be comfortable in, right? So right now, this is definitely a problem, but we are actively working on this from search point of view. And I think from a website perspective, you as a content creator, maybe you can use analytics or data from your search console to see what are those pages that are receiving more visits from search results, right? Are those pages written in
So the
using
thing,
English alphabet or pure Hindi?
so
And
the
then you can
thing,
also position your content or market your content uh, to the basically this is the problem of your target audience, right? Who they are and what their capabilities are. So if you
yeah.
can somehow determine that, then you may be able to target appropriate content.
Okay, so my major concern is like I deal with the evergreen content, the content which still stays the same after 10 years.
Hmm.
Now the thing is, what I am really interested to know is what is the how you are seeing the changing landscape. Like, are you seeing that people who prefer Hindi, or maybe after 5 years, like people still want to read in Hindi script, or they would prefer English? The way I see, I think the English is the right way to go about it. But then, since you guys are expert, I would take your advice on that.
Okay, so talking about the future, I'm not really sure what is going to happen, but see, as far as we know, there are I mean, a few hundred Hindi speakers, native Hindi speakers, right, who can
Okay.
actually write, read, and speak Hindi, right? And we have seen that there are a lot of people who would prefer reading in Hindi script than in English, right?
True
And
that.
I think as we improve the entire Hindi script ecosystem, meaning for example, for content providers, we are providing Hindi script Unicode fonts, right? So it is becoming easier for them to produce content in Hindi script. From a user perspective, we are improving voice search in Hindi. Then we have different input tools on mobile devices as well as desktop devices that actually make Hindi input pretty easy, right? Like
Okay.
handwriting, for example.
On that, I really like the point that if the voice input is going to be in Hindi, so that is going to be only in Hindi. There is no English in the voice input, right?
Right, absolutely. So when it is voice, then it will be Hindi script, right? So
True
search
that.
will be made in Hindi script, and then if you have content in his Hindi script, those people are already comfortable with Hindi script, so they would prefer that content.
Makes sense. Great. And the next one is what about the images? Like so the alt text that we use on the images, should we again use the Hindi script for that, or should we use English? I mean, can Google bot understand the alt tag written in Hindi script?
Right.
Uh,
So you see the purpose of this image all tag is not just search engines, right? So the main purpose of this all tag is basically to show that alternate text when images are not loaded. So there may be a number of reasons why images may not load, and especially in India, we have a lot of bandwidth and speed issues, right? A lot of people are using 2G networks, which are very, very flaky. So sometimes they may end up seeing only text content on their mobile devices. Images may not load at all, right? So think about its appropriate use case. Why is the alt text basically used? It is used in scenarios where the image is not loaded, but you still want to give the context of what this image is all about to your users, right? So it will be really helpful. Now imagine you have all these alt texts in English, and a person who is preferring content in Hindi, reading your Hindi page, all of a sudden sees these alt texts in English. So this is not a very good user experience for him or her, right? So I think from that perspective, it makes absolute sense for you to provide alt text as well in Hindi. And as I said, as the ecosystem would improve, search will also improve, and we will see more and more like Hindi script content showing up in the search results and usage of it by users as well.
Makes sense. And one last question, and this is regarding that using href tag. So what I'm doing right now is I have English blog and I'm manually translating all the content into Hindi. So the the content is more or less the same, but the language is completely different, and it's manually translated. No automation. So even in that case, do I really need to use the href tag, or I can treat it like a separate blog altogether?
Okay, so you mean to say you have content in English
Yeah.
and in Hindi, or do you mean to say you have content in Hindi and in transliteration?
Oh, okay. So here's the thing. I have an English blog, and what I'm doing, I'm translating the content from English blog into Hindi,
Okay,
and
okay,
the translation is completely manual, no automation. It's
right,
like, and it's written in the context that okay, an Indian user or a Hindi speaking user can understand.
right.
So do I really need to use the href tag, or can I treat it like a complete different domain altogether, a different blog?
Right. So if the content is identical, meaning it is the same article translated in Hindi, then I would advise you to use the href lang tags, because that will help Google also, determine that know that okay, both these pieces of content are the same, but catering to different audience.
Okay.
Right? So it will naturally help Google to show appropriate content at appropriate times to appropriate users. So
But
if you link that content, if you don't link that content, I'm not saying there is going to be a problem, but if you link that content, that is better.
but the challenge with that process which I've seen is like, let's say the language I've selected is Hindi, HI, okay? And if a user from India searches in Google search and he's not logged into, so technically he will be redirected to my Hindi website instead of the English website. Are you getting the picture? Like, by default, let's say if I search for something, I see English content. But if I add href tag is equal to HIIN, Hindi India. So any user, he might not be logged into his Google account and he searches for a content. And I don't know how it works, but probably he will be redirected to my Hindi language website.
So the thing is, it doesn't just work on the location basis, because India is probably a unique place where we, speak both the languages, right? English and Hindi. So it
So that,
absolutely doesn't make sense to serve Hindi pages to people who are typing in English keywords, right? English as in proper English, not transliteration, right? So I think if a user is using transliteration, meaning ultimately he's using Hindi keywords, or he is using Hindi script to write Hindi keywords and then searching for content, then it would make sense to show Hindi pages that are in Hindi script, right? But if the user is typing, I mean, looking for the same type of content but using English words, English language, then we would definitely show you the English version of your page.
makes sense. Okay, I just have one request. Being a webmaster is, so the Hindi community is like growing. Okay, but I'm actually as a user, I'm missing out the data and stats that what is happening, how much the consumption is increasing. So if you guys can on a monthly basis, if you guys can share the stats with the webmasters, I mean I think that would be wonderful for us.
You mean to say what stats?
Stats like how many number of Hindi speaking users coming online, and of course they are coming on the mobile more than the desktop. So what is the stats? How is the growth looks like? So
Right.
we can create a good strategy around it, and it would help us in longer run.
Yeah, I think there are already a number of organizations that do this. They run surveys and things like that, and there may be some government organizations as well who may have this data, right? So I think this data is already available out there, and very frankly, we also look at external data for these kind of numbers,
Okay,
right?
makes sense.
So yeah, you may want to explore a bit, use Google search, and you may be able to find this data somewhere.
Sure thing. Thanks a lot.
Hi, can you hear me? Arvind here. I have one question. Sorry, Ramesh.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So, guys, just one question on the Google console. If you can tell me, see, I'm able to track the keyword tracking for 2 to 3 months, but I want to, consistently do it. And I'm seeing a lot of changes. It's going up and down. And 1 month it's coming in the page one, and then it's going beyond. So, is there a way where don't tell me I have to go to premium account to do it, but is there a way I can do it without that perspective? Can you give me an idea about that?
Okay, your question basically is that your search ranking is fluctuating,
For a keyword.
Yeah,
right?
keywords.
Yeah,
So
and you
like if I'm taking an example, like say for the title Toyota cars, your article on Toyota cars is fluctuating from say page 1 to sometimes page 3 and page 4. Is that what you mean? Like
Yeah,
you're
ideally, see, I have good domain strength in my website, so it's in page one. But what happens is it goes from page one to page two and page three also. Now I want to consistently track it, and I use my Google Console. I have other tools also. I'm trying to track my, but I'm more looking towards the Google part. But Google Console gives me only 3 months of data, 3 months of tracking data. So I don't know whether if I'm wrong, or maybe I'm doing it a different way, but I can see only 3 months of consistent data in Google Console, Google Webmaster, or the earlier name. So I'm just trying to see, is there a way where I can look at it more consistently from the Google perspective, or I have to no other choice but to go to a premium account? What is the way to do it? I'm not asking you how to bring it to page one. I'm not asking that.
okay, great. So you're just concerned about
Tracking, operations, maintenance.
right. The history of data, right? So I think, unfortunately, we don't have, data that we can provide for longer than 90 days.
Yeah.
So it is at 90 days right now, and there is no such thing as a premium Search Console account. Right? So basically, it was known as, the tool that you're talking about was known as Webmaster Tools previously. Now we have renamed it to Search Console. That is what you're referring to, right?
Right. I'm looking at Search Console.
Right, absolutely. And
Yeah, go ahead.
we have a premium version of that tool.
No. I didn't say it's a premium version of the tool, but I heard that Google has a premium where they can assign a person from Google and help, and it's costed a little bit higher.
I think that's mostly for ads, and got nothing to do with organic search.
Okay.
So ads folks generally help you set up like if you're trying to like gather see ranking for a particular
Fine, 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 fine. I think we're just going out of the curve here. My only question is, so that other than 90 days, I can't track it. Is there any other way I can keep tracking or looking at the progress for like a year or 2 year going forward? How do I do it? That's my only question.
I don't think so.
No. Okay. Thank you.
That's consolidated.
So yeah, hi. So yeah, just to follow up on this Harsh question regarding the Hindi language thing. So the thing is like we have the news website in Hindi as well. So I mean, we are just tracking these keywords like that. Most of the traffic are coming from the English queries, not from the Hindi queries. So I mean, we have this website in Hindi optimized for the Hindi, but hardly users are actually searching in Hindi. That is might be the issue. Like they are not very savvy with the thing with the input device kind of method that typing in Hindi something like that. So I mean, how we can tackle such situations where we don't know like people are actually searching in Hindi or English. Basically, what we see in our stats is like people are coming to our website through the English queries, not from the Hindi queries.
Right. By English queries, you mean transliterated queries?
No, that is exactly the English where you can say either by the entity names or maybe any kind of incident like that.
Okay.
So I mean, they're coming to our website like any Narendra Modi is like the thing, and then they just put as an edit modifier like the in Hindi kind of thing. So they are landed to our page from these particular queries, not from the Hindi specific languages.
Right. Yeah, I think as I said that this is a difficult question for both of us, for you as well as us, to understand what the user's intent is, if they can read Hindi or not, whether to serve them a transliterated page or a Hindi page. And it's a difficult question right now, I think. But I was mentioning to Harish, probably you should, if you can use some other tools to track down how your specific pages are doing with what audience in what regions and things like those, and then you can look at those demographics and start targeting your content like that to those users. That will be great.
Okay, on that, sorry, Ramesh, the follow-up question on the same, that the thing is like, even if we talk about the voice search, India is like, I mean, Hindi is not the only language. I mean, even Hindi is spoken in like 10 different ways.
Right.
That is another challenge that we'll be facing over the time. So what can we do about it? I mean, like it's actually a big pain point for us, and not now, but in future it will be a big pain point because
Right. I think if you're just sticking to one specific dialect when you are writing in Hindi, then it may be a problem. But I think generally there is some kind of general Hindi that everybody understands, right? So, of course, I'm not saying 100% of the people who speak Hindi, different dialects, everybody will be able to understand all the content that you write. But I think overall, 80%, 90% of your content should be understood by majority of the people.
See, the thing is, people understand, that's cool, but the problem is how they search is the major concern for us. I mean, if they search in the same language.
Right.
Exactly.
I think, yes, again, if there are like, so as I said, how it works in English is basically Google automatically looks at synonyms, say for example, or the variations of a word, right? So if there is a word that is being used in an English article, and this word is, say for example, diet, right? So and only this variation of the word is mentioned in the article, which is diet, right? But the user is searching, say for example, dietary. Both in essence may mean the same. So Google automatically detects that and shows, even though the user who is searching, who is basically doing the search, hasn't typed the word diet, Google can automatically show you pages where the words like dietary as well appear, right? And there is no mention of diet in there. So dietary, basically, right? So Google understands the relation between these two words, and it knows, okay, they are in context, they are the same, but it is a word variation, or it's about grammar or how the word is being used. Now, coming to Hindi with similar problems, I think the entire ecosystem is not that mature as of now. So this is going to take some time, definitely. I'm not going to tell that Google search is perfect in Hindi as well. The fact of the matter is it is not, and it is going to take some time until our algorithms and systems understand this language better and start serving appropriate results. The problem is also that a lot of times there is not enough content available in search, right, that Google can show. So in those cases, probably you may see something which is not very relevant to your queries also showing up in the search results, or there is something relevant but it is using a little, different dialect or different keywords, and that is not being shown for searches. These things may happen, and they will continue to happen for, until we get to a point where we start understanding Hindi as well as we are understanding English. So I think we will have to wait and watch this space for some time. But what I can assure you is we have our focus on Hindi right now, especially among all the Indic languages. We are focusing on Hindi because that is the major language among all the Indic languages. So we have all our focus there right now, and we are dedicating a lot of resources to improving search in Hindi. So I think that state where we start serving results like we serve in English is not very far off. So that much I can assure you as of now.
We're keeping our finger crossed.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. So, if Google uses desktop site signals to rank mobile sites, will mobile site be able to rank if a website goes only mobile and desktop? So, Ramesh, when you say only mobile, do you mean that desktop site doesn't have any content that's there on mobile version?
Yeah, I mean, desktop doesn't exist, just a mobile website.
So then obviously there will be a user experience mismatch. So like the content will stay the same, and if someone searches for a product which is there only on your mobile website and it's indexable by Google, then we'll probably show it even when someone's searching on desktop, because that's the relevant URL. But if there are better URLs, and then it generally means like like the desktop version, there could be a user experience mismatch because it's not catering to the desktop users, and that in that cases your site may not rank as high when people are searching on desktop. But again, like if it's relevant, there's no reason why we wouldn't show it. So like it's basically like all sites are they're treated based on like the content they have. They're ranked based on how relevant they are for a particular query. When it comes to mobile, we obviously want to help make the mobile user experience better, which is why we introduced the mobile ranking. We have the URL. So if there is any redirects, we obviously there's a penalty there when you have redirects that don't match, and like speed is an issue. Like if your site is so slow on mobile, again that. So basically, for mobile user experience, we introduced the mobile ranking change, but the site underlying ranking stays the same. It's always mostly about content, like how relevant your content is to the query that you use. Okay. Any live questions, or we can go to the next?
I have a question, Arvind here, because you touched about mobile-friendly stuff. Now, I do go through your site when you change to the mobile-friendly, and we did the test of our website in that, the Google change, and it did give up some of these, throw out some of these parameters. But is that sufficient to do those parameters? Because our site is a pretty old site, and it has a combination of Java and Drupal. So it's a little bit complicated. The architecture is complicated. So if I go by what your Google threw out, saying that decrease the page size, decrease the content size, add the mobile viewport, add on that, I did all that. But my architecture is still complicated. My front end, the first pages are more mobile friendly, but my architecture is more complicated. So any comments or thought process on that, or do I need to make my entire system as a mobile friendly for it to be better for the future?
Okay.
If it makes sense, my question.
I'm not sure like what parameters you're seeing, but in general, the mobile friendly tool has a pretty binary response. So it's like if your site is either mobile friendly or not mobile friendly. If your site is mobile friendly, then that basically means like we are, not there's no issues with mobile friendliness at least for the time being. But if it's not, then the issues that you mentioned come up, like viewport, sizes, and maybe in some case speed also. But like you said, like if you think you have a complicated architecture and it's hard to change the desktop version, you can always create an alternate mobile website. Like instead of having the like maybe instead of trying to do responsive design, you can always get a new mobile website under a separate subdomain and just link those pages to your desktop version. So by
Okay.
designing, you don't even need to redirect. You can just simply tell to Google that link rel canonical and your desktop page is the canonical version and your mobile page is like the alternate version.
Okay, that's. I think I didn't go through the solution. See, now just a month back, my site failed the mobile-friendly test. Okay, then that's when we saw your comments. We changed those comments, and it passed the mobile-friendly test. But still, we know it's a complicated site, and yeah, the speed, like, it's not as good as when we compare it to our competitors in the market. So we want to like try to be the best. I mean, as much as moving towards the market. So that's why I was asking you this question. So what you're saying is, if I can have a separate site only for the mobility and change it, and that is also okay with Google, and that will not have a clash with the desktop and mobile. Is that what you're confirming?
Yeah. So like we always supported like three types of mobile websites. First is the responsive design, which you probably implemented, where like the URL stays the same for both mobile and desktop. It's just that it's designed in a particular way so that when a mobile user sees the website, it fits his mobile device, and he doesn't need to
Correct.
on horizontally or anything. Then the other two versions are, one is the one I just said now about having an alternate mobile only website, and the third version is basically like the URL stays the same, but you can have a separate varied header in your HTTP response, so that when Google's mobile user agent comes, instead of serving the desktop page, you serve the mobile version. So here also you're maintaining a separate site, but the URL stays the same. You're just serving different versions of your site based on the user agent that's requesting your web page.
No, no, I got it. Thank you. Just one final question is, from a Google perspective, does any of these three have a weightage, or they're all seen the same? It doesn't matter.
No, so as long as it's mobile friendly, they're all seen the same. So
Okay.
we recommend responsive web design because it's easier to, like, not easier to implement per se, but it's easier to maintain, and like it costs less and stuff. So we just recommend it, but like all three are this, we support all three. There's no ranking or any sort of weightage to one over the other.
No, trust me. If you have a dinosaur website like mine, it doesn't cost cheap to make it mobile responsive. But yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Ashish, hi. So sorry. So I mean, just to follow up on this one. So we have this website. Actually, it is in a kind of staging, a kind of development phase. So we are facing problem with the dynamic version of it that one. Basically, our the server is like actually not responding that well in terms of varying the user agent. So we are facing issue with the Akamai kind of thing. So basically, they not very like you can say not providing that much of support that can actually handle that much of request from the server itself. So I mean, we have this huge website. So I mean, it is next to impossible for them to store that cache for the desktop and the mobile version and then provide that according to the user agent. So I mean, how we can actually go with this one? I mean, dynamic, I don't think so that is working for us. So is there any alternative we can go with this thing? I mean,
Dynamic, again, it's like it's very resource intensive, like I just said. So you need to pour a lot of resources into it, and you obviously need to serve cached versions of your page, so that the local server, like local ISP, is storing cached versions of your mobile page, of your desktop page and stuff. But again, this is really useful for people who are catering to multiple devices, like not just say desktop and like mobile, but rather like for televisions, for different other interfaces like say tablets or I don't know what else can it be. But anyway, so like if someone's catering to multiple devices, yeah, yeah. So dynamic version is generally useful. But if it's just mobile and desktop, and you want like different content, then I'd say just go with a simple alternate mobile website and use well tags.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question.
You don't sorry if you don't need the content to be changed, then responsive is the best. I
Responsive,
mean,
yeah.
like if you
So,
think
so
what
then, yeah, we are actually altering the content part basically for our users. That depends on the like what users are actually looking for instead of showing everything. So that's why we go for the approach with the dynamic one. But I mean that is not feasible in
yeah,
our
sure,
case.
that's completely fine. Obviously, some cases you want your mobile users to see different content, like you'd want to style your site, so that's totally fine. But I'm just saying that like if you just have a desktop and a mobile version, it's not a bad idea to go for separate like just the separate mobile site and leave dynamic stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question regarding algorithm. So the algorithm which you have for English search engine, is it exactly the same for Hindi, the Hindi search engine, or the Hindi search engine algorithm is something which is in the process and it's quite different from the English algorithm?
Well, the core of the search engine is the same. It doesn't change with the language, right? Because it is not just English and Hindi. There are number of dozens of languages that we cater to. So the core of the search engine remains the same, except that, of course, every language is different. So when it comes to the nitty-gritties of a specific language, the grammatical issues or the vocabulary itself, then I think we have, of course, our machines will have to have that customized knowledge, So it may vary only there.
So I'll tell you the reason why I asked you this question. Back in 2010, when Google launched Google Cafe, they launched because that is the time when there was an explosion in terms of content on web, right? Right now, the Hindi language is on a very, at a growing stage, and we don't have too much of content. So, indexing and then filtering out content does not make sense from this point of view, like the point of view where we are right now. So Panda is one of those which actually removed those content from back in 2012. So do we have the similar thing for Hindi, or like right now, since there is less content on Hindi language, the architect or the algorithm is a bit different when you compare to English sometimes.
I'm really sorry. I don't think I fully understood your question. If you could, did you?
So
Sure, I'll repeat that if you want me to. So the thing is, 2010 when English language was exploding and there were too many content, that was the time Google launched Caffeine to index a lot of content. And then I think it was in 2012 they launched Panda to remove the low quality content and focus more on quality content. Now in 2015, when we talk about the Hindi language, we don't have too many content. Right now, the first goal is to get the content up. I mean, the indexing and filtering out content would come later on when we have enough content. So what is the approach that Google Hindi search algorithm is taking right now?
Right. So basically, you mean to say the Google's capacity of taking in burst of content that is happening in Hindi, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I think our systems are pretty advanced right now and pretty capable of handling even tons of more content. And I think our systems are right now built to handle that because we know content is only going to grow. It is not going to reduce. So yes, I think we are at a good stage.
All right.
Yeah.
okay, so we're running out of time, so we'll try and take some of the Q&A questions. So, okay, Amit Kumar asks, we're already having proper interlinking throughout the site. Is it the best practice to create an HTML site? So I'd say go for an XML sitemap because we don't, like at least in Webmaster Tools, we don't accept HTML sitemaps. So like at least for submission in Webmaster Tools and generally looking at like how many URLs are indexed just for that data, I'd say XML or if you wanted simpler text sitemaps would be better. But if you're not bothered about like search console data or anything, I mean, if you can create HTML sitemap, it's not an issue.
And if you're comparing between just having, I mean, good interlinked pages versus having a sitemap, then I think if especially if you have a, I mean, sitemap is not definitely, it's not a requirement for you to have. However, if you have a large site, then I think it is a good practice to provide sitemap, because that's a very straightforward way of telling Google the list of pages that you have in your website, and it will be easier for us to discover and crawl those pages.
So another question is, does Google bot treat self-linking as black hat? If you're linking internal pages of your website to each other and they make sense, that's fine. But if you don't, then I mean, it's not black hat per se, but like there's no like you don't get anything out of adding extra links within your website. The like page rank sculpting and all those techniques, I don't think they work anymore now. So self-linking, if it's relevant, it's very good and it's very useful to the like user too, because he can like go to from one page to another relevant page. But apart from that, I'd say like if you're trying to like gain some like trick the system, I'm not sure if it won't work, but there's no advantage to it apart from there's no advantage to it. Yeah, next question is sorry, one. So next question is, what does Google recommend for URL structure of local language site? Is it to be in local language or English?
Yeah, I think the best and the ideal scenario would be for you to have the URLs as well in the same language as your content, because URL is also visible in the search results and URL is also visible in the browser, and people access web pages by typing URLs, right? So if you have the URLs in the same language, for example, if you're writing Hindi content and then you have URLs as well in Hindi, then it is a good experience for a Hindi user, right? However, it is, I mean, right now it is not a problem if you have your URLs in English. It is not to say that, okay, if you have your URLs in English and then content in Hindi, your ranking is going to affect. But I think in the long term, it is better if you have your URLs in the same language as well.
Okay, let's go to the next question. Why is there discrepancy in data if you compare it with new and old Search Console? Ramesh, can you quickly explain? Are you seeing old interface data too? I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So this is, I mean,
Sorry, your voice is breaking.
so the thing, what the new interface. So I see this data discrepancy like when I'm comparing with my old data. So I mean, just switching back to the old one, or if I'm comparing with the new consoles. So it is a discrepancy in the like the number of visits or the clicks or the impression things.
Is there like a huge discrepancy?
Not huge, but yes, it's there.
I'm not sure. Like, I'm assuming the old interface is not updated. I'm not sure. Like, I'll check back on that. Sure.
Okay.
Question is, how much information is sufficient for a web page that can describe what is the page, what the page is about? How can we know what really fulfills the intent of the user? Is it good for conversation purpose? So you mean the description? Or do you mean
The overall content.
sorry?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So basically, you mean to say, okay, how do we determine if there is sufficient content on a page, right, to fulfill what the user is looking for, right? So a page may have just one paragraph, a page may have 10 paragraph article. So what is
Yes.
enough, right?
That's something
Yeah.
you decide. Because that's something that you decide based on like your users. So we have no say in that. All we can do is see if content is relevant, and if users are like finding it relevant. But apart from that, like what content goes into your site, how useful it is for users, that's something that you decide.
Yeah, so I think this is very subjective depending on what type of content you have on your pages. Yeah, if you're writing a scientific article, it can't be one paragraph. It has to be at certain length, right?
Yeah, but
Explaining
if you
things.
go into
Yeah.
the details, this can take
Yes,
quite some
really.
time. So we'll just move on. So Ravinandan Singh asked, is it okay to run different HTML and different content on different mobile browsers even though the URL is same? So if you mean to say like you want to serve one type of content to the Chrome browser, but when someone's visiting with a Firefox user agent, you want to serve another type of content? Is that what?
I don't know. Is it okay to run different HTML and
Like if you can
content?
elaborate on this, it'd be great. So I'm not sure like what exactly you mean by this question. So so does ranking shown in Google Webmaster Tools show ranking considering paid ads, or it considers only organic? So when you see search queries data and all that keyword data, it's all about search results. There's all organic search results, so there's no ad related information in Webmaster Tools. So like we try and keep search and ads as separate as possible. So we don't mix search and ads. We want to keep organic search separate, and we don't want it influenced by any paid ads or any like external influence. So yeah, that's it.
Ashish, can I ask you this question regarding this separate domain for the mobile site? So the thing is like we are actually interlinking our website pages. So I mean, while optimizing for the mobile website, should we start linking with our M site, or you can just suggesting with the start linking with the desktop site? So I mean, linking pattern wise, M dot, or you can say a fully desktop version site.
So if you simply want to let Google know that yeah, this is the desktop version, this is the mobile version, you don't even need to like link each other. You can simply put the link rel canonical and link rel alternate tags. But if you want to redirect your users to link directly, that's something you don't even need to use linking. Just based on the redirect, Google can identify that. Like since mobile users are being redirected to the mobile page, Google understands the truth. Both these
Yeah.
pages are the same.
Yeah,
Just that
yeah,
you
that I understand. That I understand, but I'm asking about that the internal link. For example, I'm writing one article about one thing, and just having something that is already written on. So just start linking with this particular my earlier article from my recent articles. So in that way, so should I link my M site or my desktop site?
so
In link with yeah.
so if you're on mobile, if someone's on a mobile page, I'd assume they'd want to go to relevant mobile links. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like internal linking. It's basically based on how a user can navigate your page. So see, even Google tries to navigate your website like a user. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So like just think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the user and see if you want him to go to another page, or if you want to provide links to other pages, does he want to visit the mobile version or desktop version of that particular page? Based on that, you can.
Okay. All right.
We'll take the next question. Amit Kumar asks, should we use nofollow tag on schema.org/organization third-party link to restrict the link juice? Does nofollow tag impact to show knowledge graph in Google as search results pages? Um, so see, nofollow tags, we generally ask you to use nofollow tags when there's a paid link, or you're like selling links, or you don't want to pass page rank, or if you're buying links, if you're selling links for someone, like you're promoting something and you're selling links, obviously that's that would be considered manipulation of search results. So we want you to use nofollow tag so it doesn't affect search results. But in this case, if it's relevant, if you're simply linking to schema.org and it's relevant, there's no reason to use nofollow. If you want to, you can, but there's no like strict rule that you should use nofollow. So we'll question. Can a website without links? Can a website rank without links? If not, then how can a small business outrank or compete with site with big budget or anything Google's making very difficult for new entrants in the market who has low budget?
Yeah. Definitely, yes. A site without any links pointing to it can also rank. It is not just only sites with links can rank. For example, if you think about PageRank, that is one of the signals that we use to rank pages, right? And that PageRank is basically a reflection of the links and the quality of the links that you have to your pages. So it is definitely possible that a PageRank lower PageRank 1, for example, page can outrank a PageRank with a greater PageRank, say for example PageRank 7 or 8, right? That can happen. So when that can happen, it can also happen that if you don't have any links, your page can still rank beyond pages that have good amounts of links. So remember that links is not the only factor that we look at when we are ranking. There are more than 200 plus factors that we consider. So even if you don't have links, then there are chances based on other factors that you may still show up in the search results.
But that hardly works. I mean, so yeah, I've seen cases like no matter like how better quality work you done, I mean that never works basically. So when we just in chasing things like it's really hard to get links. That is you asking for the only the natural links that will be counted. So I mean,
I think in a way I agree, Ramesh. So basically, I think sites, on the other hand, of course, sites will not magically start to rank like at number 1 position in the searches as soon as you have your content out there, right? So
yeah.
even for Google, it takes some time to understand the authority and credibility of that page. What I'm trying to say is it is not only the backlinks that are considered in determining the credibility of the page, right? So it
Okay.
could be other factors as well. So it is not appropriate to focus only on links. Rather, of course, you should use other means. For example, social media is a very good tool these days that you can use to promote your content, get people talking about it, build your brand, and that as a reflection, right, can benefit your pages to rank higher. So all I'm trying to say is that focusing only on backlinks is not a good idea. However, thinking that okay, as soon as I have my content, if I write really good article, it is automatically going to rank at number 1 position for certain keywords. That is also not going to happen.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We're actually out of time. If you can, John Mueller has hangouts. Like I'm sure Ramesh, you attend his hangouts. So he has hangouts every other week, and we'll also be back again next month. So like, please get the rest of your questions. Then.
Yeah, I think there are a bunch of questions we were not able to answer.
Yeah,
so
sorry about it. But,
so I think
I have plenty ones.
see you guys. Thanks. It was really
great.
good.
Thanks for joining. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.